Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlos here, and you want to get better at Pokemon, don't you? Well, Pokemon's a big, scary place with lots of things to learn, but at least I can do my best to try to show you guys the resources I use to expand my Pokemon knowledge, and hopefully this guide will help you out with understanding more and more about Pokemon, because I get many comments, questions in my videos every day, and I can't respond to all of them, and some of them are fairly basic that with the right understanding of how to search for it, you can find the knowledge a lot quicker than you might have expected. That I can't really condemn anyone for asking questions, but at the same time, if you know how to use your resources really well and you know actually what I'm doing to look for this information, you can find it for yourself and maybe even learn more than you would have discovered by just having your question answered. So that's why we're here at Cerebi right now. We're at the Cerebi.net Pokedex, and I will have links in the description to all of these websites that I use, and hopefully you guys will understand how I at least go about finding knowledge. Now, I've done a video similar to this, but this one's going to be more in depth to hopefully answer more and more questions. Now, first off, at this Pokedex, you can find everything out about the 6th generation. That this is the XY, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire Pokedex, and it has, you can search any Pokemon by type. So, you want an electric type for your team. Well, there you go, in Pokedex order. You want to find out what the fastest Pokemon in the game is. Well, you just click on this button right here, and then you can find out the fastest Pokemon in the game, so on and so forth. Now, what I just did was very simple, that I searched the Pokemon by type, and I searched the Pokemon by stats, and you can even search by effort values. So if you want to know, like, how to raise special attack on a Pokemon, you can kind of look for the Pokemon that raise special attack, and you can see if they're accessible in your game. Most of these, you know, sometimes you're never going to encounter like a Typhlosion, or you're not going to EV train off of Moltres, for example. But at the same time, you can kind of go and look for Pokemon that you encounter in the wild, and you can say, alright, Ralts gives 1 point of special attack. Good to know, and then you can just kind of do that. Now, with the Horde EV training, this thing is kind of obsolete, but it is something I have used in the past, and it is something that you can use for trivia knowledge. Now, at the same time, with this thing by stats, you can use this to expand your team. Now, if you want an offensive Pokemon, you need a physical Pokemon, well, now you can go and just learn some things. Heracross. Mega Heracross is the highest base attack for a non-legendary Pokemon, only 5 base attack points off of Mega Mewtwo X. And then at the same time, Rampardos, highest attack in the game for a non-mega, non-legendary Pokemon. So you can kind of just look through and figure these things out for yourself. You can see a lot of these are legendary Pokemon or mega Pokemon, and that's kind of where the base stat totals lie, but you can keep going down, you know. 150 base attack is still incredibly intimidating, and that's where these Pokemon stats are. So Mega Sharpedo has 140, and you can just kind of keep going down. I think speed is the most important, so we can just go and click on the speed button, and now we can kind of find out speed tiers. That look, Electrode is on the same speed tier as Mega Mewtwo Y with a 140 base speed each, and then Excelgor goes and outspeeds both of them, and Sceptile is just as fast as Excelgor. So it's good to know like where the Pokemon are, that you know you can see base 130 speed Pokemon. So from here to here, we have Jolteon, Aerodactyl, Mewtwo, Crobat, Gengar, and Mewtwo X. Now we already know the Pokemon that are in the 130 base speed, so we have to understand, okay, we need to outspeed 394 speed points at level 100, and that's really all that there is to it. Now, as you go in more and more specifics, you can kind of figure these things out. Well, at 130 base speed, what does that mean at level 50? I battle on the battle spot. I don't know what level 100 is going to be. So by clicking on the Pokemon, we go to that Pokemon's page, and now to figure out even more things about it, we have all this information right here. We can see what the Pokemon evolves into, or what Pokemon you need to evolve to get to that, where you can catch it. I think that this is a big one that you can kind of find out. Okay, in X and Y, I need to evolve Eevee. In Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I need to evolve Eevee. Well, where do I catch Eevee? Now let's go to Eevee's page, and then we can find out Route 116. Boom, there we go. I think one of the biggest questions that I've seen is, how do I catch Rotom in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire? Well, all you have to do is search Rotom, so we'll just go to H through R through the Pokedex, and then we'll click on Rotom, and all we need to do is scroll down just a bit more. Now we have Trade from X and Y, Lost Hotel on Tuesdays, so we just kind of go backwards. So that means there's no way of getting Rotom in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. We have to catch an X and Y, then trade it up. Boom, that's like 100 questions solved right there, just from doing a little information. Now, this is why I like Cerebi. Cerebi has its own things that you can use to your advantage, and it does give you a lot of really good information. At the same time, I also use Bulbapedia, because they both have their pros and cons. That if we also go back to the Jolteon page, and we scroll down, we can kind of see right here that there is a level 50 part right here. So we can actually see that at level 50 what this Pokemon stats are with a beneficial nature, a neutral nature, and a hindering nature. So we can see, alright, if we have a neutral speedy nature, that's going to be 359 at level 100, or 182 at level 50. And if we go back to the next max stats, alright, that means we need to outspeed 200 base speed at level 50. And then if we scarf a Pokemon, I think if you scarf it with 135 base attack or base speed, that Pokemon Scarfed will now outspeed a Jolteon with a beneficial nature that doesn't have a Scarf itself at level 50. Now the numbers do change from level 100 to level 50, so it is good for knowing which tier you're battling on. Other things that you can use Cerebi for is transfer only moves. Now if you see a Pokemon with one of these moves in 6th generation, that means it doesn't have a blue pentagon, it wasn't caught, bred, or trained in the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire or in X and Y, which means it's not competitive legal for the battle spot or most official events. So you can kind of also look at this for the moves that the Pokemon can't learn, and then you can also find pre-evolution moves and move tutors and egg moves. So if you need to know a move for a Pokemon, you can either search that move and look for the Pokemon. Like, what if you didn't know that Jolteon had Charm, so you just want to find Pokemon that learn Charm? Well, that's going to be Eevee, which means every evolution is going to have Charm because it just evolves that way. And you can kind of scroll through and see, oh wow, what's this? Furfrou gets Charm? Well, now I've found another Pokemon, you can click on that. And this is pretty much how most of my information is gained. I just click on random Pokemon and I just start learning things that I chain from one information bit to the next, and then I eventually find out a Pokemon to use, or find some information that I'll be able to use at later points. Now let's hop over to Bulbapedia. Bulbapedia does have its own things that it's good for. What I really like about it is the breeding. That you can find the moves that this Pokemon learns through by breeding, and it's really quick to figure out the Pokemon's parents. So if I want Bide, I have to breed it with a Piplup that knows Bide. Boom, Dunsparce with Bide, just like that. This is on Cerebi, except you do have to click on the details, and then you get to this page. But with Bulbapedia, it's just right there. Boom, you already have it. Also with Bulbapedia, the type effectiveness is beautifully laid out. They can see, alright, what is this Pokemon weak against? Fighting. Done. Now if we go back over here, with Cerebi, it's a little more convoluted that it's this little bar right here, and you have to search it by the type instead of the weaknesses. So I mean, right here we can see, alright, it's weak against fighting 2 times. So you either have to look for the number and then the type, or the type and the number. Like, is Furfrou weak against Psychic? Okay, no, it's a neutral hit. Instead of just going right here and seeing, okay, it's not on the weaknesses, it's not on the immunities, it's not on the resistances. That way I must know it's neutral. So it's a lot more laid out right here. Also, with the base stats on Bulbapedia, it doesn't show the ranges for a neutral nature. It just shows the absolute maximum stats with 252, 31, and a helpful nature. So that's why I use both of these. If I happen to be on one website, I can find the information I need for that. If I happen to be on another, I can find it. But if I'm looking for specific information, I'll go to Bulbapedia or Cerebi accordingly. And you just find these out by navigating the websites. Now, what I will use Bulbapedia for every time is looking up a specific move. That on Cerebi, you pretty much just get this text, like the user charges up power, raises defense and special defense, move can be used 3 times. That's really all you're going to see on Cerebi, as well as the Pokemon that learn it by leveling up and breeding. But with Bulbapedia, they have these little interactions. That's a more in-depth description, and that's what I really like about it. So let's say we were to look at a Pokemon, at a move like Skill Swap. Skill Swap, sometimes there's some really funny interactions that if you look, okay, so Wonder Guard cannot be skill swapped. Multi-type cannot be skill swapped. Illusion and Zen mode cannot be skill swapped. Stance change cannot be skill swapped. You don't really get that from Cerebi, and it's all those really in-depth things. So this is like specific information about a specific move. Same for abilities. It tells you ability interactions, like this ability might not work here, this ability does this. You know, stance change, we can go on stance change, and there's this whole paragraph on how it works. You know, stance change cannot be traced, copied, suppressed, nothing will stop stance change, because then you kind of ruin the whole thing about Aegislash. But this is how you find out that information about that. Let's go and look at Prankster as an ability. The Prankster ability is a little funny. So I mean, we can just kind of see increases priority of status moves by 1. Prankster's not blocked by Quick Guard in the 5th generation, but then in the 6th generation it is blocked by Quick Guard. So you can have seen changes that the game has made. And then you can also just go and click on status moves. All these moves are going to be affected by Prankster because they are categorized as status moves. And that's kind of how I do my information searching. Now there are even more resources that you can use, so let's hop over to Pokemon Showdown. I do say that a lot in my how to use guides, yet there are many questions. What program am I using when I do my Pokemon? And it is Pokemon Showdown. That what I do is I click play, I go to Team Builder, and then I go and I just build a team. Now, you guys are getting a pretty funny view as opposed to what you are normally looking at. That's because I just have the flat screen. But pretty much, you know, you just kind of click on a Pokemon, you say, alright, I'm going to search up Altaria. There's Altaria. Now we can look at the stats. It's like, what's Altaria's speed? 259, or you can change the nature really quick. And it's really quick, that you get instant updates on what EVs you need, on what speed tiers you need, that instead of going to Cerebi and kind of looking, alright, what stat at what level, you can adjust the level and everything right here. So if I already have Pokemon Showdown open, normally I'll just search up the Pokemon and then I'll find all the stats that I need to know. That, okay, with 252 EVs, I'm going to have 145 speed with a beneficial nature at level 50. Boom, I have all the information that I need. And then you can play around with the other stats. Like, okay, my base defense is going to be 110. My base special defense is going to be 125. But if I want to invest into it, those numbers change. And you don't really get those specifics on either Bulbapedia or Cerebi. So this is where all that specific information comes in. And then you can use it to find out outspeeds and things like that. Because then you just like, okay, what if I use agility? What if I have a choice scarf? And then you just kind of compare that to the numbers that we saw over on Cerebi, that then you go to the speed type chart. So let's just do, I think I can skip to the Pokemon X and Y from here, and then I go and look at the speed chart, so then I get a speed number, and I look for it, okay, say it's at 360 speed. So we'll be like, okay, from right here on, we'll outspeed all these Pokemon. So that makes us like the 49th fastest or the 48th fastest Pokemon. We outspeed Superior, Perugly, Scolipede, Lucario. If we manage to obtain a 360 speed at level 100, then we can also scale those numbers back down to level 50 by just kind of clicking on that Pokemon. Like, okay, Swoobat, what kind of speed does Swoobat have at level 50? Because then that's going to kind of give us the same thing for our speed tier if we outspeed it. 182, so that means at level 50, we need to outspeed 182, not 359. So it doesn't necessarily cut in half exactly, which is also very important to understand. And now we still outspeed those same Pokemon, Superior, Lucario, and so on. So this is just kind of how I really link all that information together, and Pokemon Showdown is the main strategy site that I use for finding out all these specifics, kind of preparing your EVs, that you can actually kind of come up with these things beforehand. Now also, there's a nifty little damage calculator on here, so you can kind of figure out what Pokemon survive what. That, okay, hey, will a Garchomp actually survive, let's say an Ice Shard? That if we look right here, Ice Shard from Abomasnow with specific attack investment, even if it's 252 adamant, will I survive?
Get knocked out?
Math says no, so that means, you know, Ice Shard from Abomasnow, you're safe. But what about a different Pokemon like Weavile? Do I have to worry about Life Orb Weavile Ice Shard? It looks like that I do. Even a Jolly Nature, so a non-adamant Weavile threatens to knock out a Garchomp 75% chance of time. So just pretty much see it that you're going to get knocked out. So don't try to stay in against the Weavile thinking you might survive a priority move, because it's still enough damage since Garchomp is 4 times weak. And these are just other things that you understand knowledge from the matchups that, okay, can I survive 1 hit? Can I survive 2 hits? Does my retribution damage outpace what he's throwing even though he's faster than me? And that's really all you need to understand. Now another really cool site is the Pokemon Global link. The official Pokemon website links to the Pokemon Global link. I'll also have a link in the description. You can click on the league that you play, and now you can find the most used Pokemon throughout the entire Pokemon Global link. So online battle spot and all that, which means, okay, let's go to single battles. Let's see the most used Pokemon single battles. These are the Pokemon I should expect to see. And also, if you click on that Pokemon, it will show what moves these Pokemon have. 70% of Gengar have Destiny Bond. Be aware of that. Let's go and look at the natures. 97% are going to be running Timid. So pretty much just expect a speedy Gengar, not a hard-hitting Gengar like a modest one. And you can do this for all of the Pokemon that, okay, what about Aegislash? What's Aegislash up to in single battles? Well, only 60% of them are running King Shield. Like, that's huge news to me, and I'm just finding this out right now. Like, 60% are running King Shield in single battles, which means sometimes they might not even have a way of getting back into their defensive form except for switching out. So also you can look, Shadow Ball on 60% of sets. So you can really like link these things together. 61% are using Shadow Ball and 56% are using Sacred Sword, with 32 using Swords Dance. So it's a 1 in 3 chance that's a setup offensive Aegislash, but it's a 2 in 3 chance that's going to be like a special Aegislash. And then you can look at the natures. Well, 33% are adamant, 40% are quiet, and then you add modest and brave. So you're still seeing more special Aegislash than physical Aegislash, and you can plan accordingly. Another big Pokemon, Landorus. Let's look at the natures of Landorus. More of them are adamant than Jolly, so you're not going to see as many Jolly Scarf Landorus as you will adamant Scarf Landorus. You can even check the items with that. So you can kind of look and see, okay, only 40% of Landorus are Scarfed, and only 22% of those are Jollies, so the odds of seeing a Jolly Scarf Landorus, probably somewhere around 1 in 3, and you can just kind of plan for how you're going to do that by just understanding the statistics and playing to your advantages, because that's one of the beauties of Pokemon, is you don't know what your opponent's going to do, that you don't know their item, you don't know their moveset, and you can just kind of at least use these tools to understand the matchup beforehand and hope that you guess it right just using the odds in your favor. And that's really all that there is to Pokemon, that between Cerebi, Pokemon Showdown, Pokemon Global Link, and Bulbapedia. You can find out almost anything that you need to know, unless it's something really specific, then you might need a little extra research. This is what I do. I just kind of chain information together. I just kind of look for the specifics and maybe find something along the way. And hopefully this answers many questions, or this allows you to look up the questions that you have and find an answer for yourself. And that's really all that there is to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helps out with making you a better battler, because there is a lot to understand in Pokemon. And I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.